Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, we take time for live questions. Most of the time, we don't have time to get around to all of those live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered in a video, so I gather them up here and we answer them in companion videos. Now, today's a little bit of a big one because we got to get caught up on Fridays, this past Friday's John Campea Show questions that were left over, and today, Monday, April the 29th, questions that got left over. So we got a whole bunch of them. We're going to do them all together in one. So let's not waste any time and jump right to it. The first question to us comes to us from Matthew Fisher, who writes, I now predict that Endgame will beat Infinity War opening weekend. This one obviously came in on Friday, but not overall total. Not nearly as rewatchable, and fan reaction seems split. I'm going to disagree. Well, obviously we know it did beat the record by $100 million. I'm going to disagree with you that the audience is split. The audience is not split. Not at all. Now, not everybody likes Endgame. I've had a few people write in on the John Campea Show to say they didn't like it, but overwhelmingly the majority of people like it. Not everybody thinks it's the best thing ever, but the overwhelming majority seem to really like the film. So it is not split at all. Now, it is 3 hours long, which will limit some rewatchability, sure. I think it's no question it's going to pass Infinity War overall, and I think it's no question it's going to pass Titanic. I think it's going to pass Titanic for the #2 all-time box office spot. The only question that seems to be left is whether it's going to catch Avatar. Some people think it's going to be easy. Not so fast. 2.7 billion is a huge number, and everybody already went out to see Endgame, and it's already opened in all the markets, so it doesn't have any more markets to open up in. So we'll see how that goes, but it's certainly possible that it could. We might be looking at the #1 box office movie of all time now. Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll have to wait and see. James Rel22 writes, John, did you see last night's episode of Supernatural? If so, holy shit, and if not, holy shit. Well, I've been asked that before. Everybody knows I'm a massive Supernatural fan. I hated the last episode. I hated the season finale. I thought it was just ridiculous and dumb and stupid and inconsistent with what they did with the Chuck character. They completely retconned Chuck. Chuck has never been like that. In all the seasons that he's been on, he's never been that way. It felt like a desperate last-second retcon so they can set up a big antagonist for the final season next year. Hopefully it wins me over, but I'll be honest with you, as a big Supernatural fan, this is the first time ever in 14 seasons that I straight up hated an episode, and I didn't like this episode at all, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people did, but, you know, not me, unfortunately. Okay, Greg C. writes, with all the heavy topics MCU brings up, PTSD, alcoholism, death, do you think the MCU can still be considered movies for kids/younger viewers or old-timers like us? Thanks for an outlet to give my thoughts on this movie. Well, thank you so much for that, Greg, and I'm glad you're here. Honestly, I don't think the answer is either. The MCU isn't for us who are older, nor is it made for kids. The MCU was never made for kids. The MCU is kid-friendly, but that means there's going to be some stuff in there that's over their heads or maybe stuff that they can't quite grapple with. But I think for the most part, the MCU has always made their movies in such a way that they're for everybody. You can be young, you can be older, you can be rich, you can be poor, you can be male, you can be female, you can be whatever. MCU strives to make their movies for everyone. And that means they're not made for kids, nor are they made for adults. They're made for everybody. That means there's going to be some stuff that might seem a little juvenile to us older folks. It might seem like there's some stuff that's over the head for kids that watch it, but generally speaking, I find it's for everybody. And that includes having some real world issues, alcoholism, PTSD, stuff like that. And then some lower level humor stuff, right, that kids could understand and grasp on. And I think, like I said, that's the bottom line for me, Greg. I think they're just for everybody on that level. Thanks a lot for writing that in. I appreciate that. All right, NPE94 writes, always say what you think, John. I don't listen to your opinions just to hear what I want to hear, even if I thought Endgame's first act was the best. Well, I'm really glad that you understand that, MP. Look, I've always said that my job is not to get my viewers to agree with me. Not at all. There's no fun in that. My job is to give my honest opinion and express it in such a way, hopefully good enough, that you will have a better understanding of your own position, whether that's a position that agrees with me or disagrees with me. You know, that's my job, to express my opinion in such a way that it helps you sharpen your own fundamental understanding of a topic, whether that means sharpening why you agree with me or sharpening why you disagree with me. That's my job. not to say things you want to hear, not to get you to agree with me. Heaven forbid. Film fandom is fun because we disagree. And we're supposed to disagree on whether Act 1, 2, or 3 is better than this, or whether that movie's better than that, or whether that movie's any good, or whatever. We're supposed to disagree. If we all agreed, then there wouldn't be anything to talk about. So I'm really glad that you got a grasp on that, MP, and thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. All right, Michael Trillo Jr. writes, saw Endgame as an 18-year-old with the same group of friends we saw Iron Man with our parents as 8-year-olds. That's awesome, man. Very emotional and forever grateful for Marvel. And I've had other people tell me stuff like that. Movies are experiential events, Michael, and they're best when they're shared experiences. And for you to have these landmark movies that you have shared and been able to share with the same group of people and have these shared experiences is one of the best things about movies. And that makes me feel real good here about that. Thank you for sharing that with me, Michael. I think that's awesome. All right, Luke Blackwell writes, have you seen Game of Phones bit on Jimmy Kimmel? I have not. I've seen the thumbnail for it on YouTube. I've seen some social media shares of it, but I never clicked on it. So I've heard it's pretty fun, but I haven't seen it yet myself. Stubble McShave writes, have A-List resulted in an economic success for AMC? Well, I don't have the books for AMC. I don't have their financials, but all I can assume is, look, they keep promoting it, and they keep pushing it, and they keep trying to get more people signing up. So I got to imagine at this point, it must be doing some pretty good stuff for them. So I'm going to go on a limb and guess yes. Doshi writes, go Oilers, go. Leafs suck. Sorry, John. No, but hey, look, I like the Oilers. I've been watching the Oilers ever since Wayne Gretzky was there when I was a kid. I was watching Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhr, Andy Moog, you name it. All the great classic Oilers. And then when Gretzky left and Messier became the leader of the team and they won another Stanley Cup. I like me some Oilers, man. Good Canadian team. Obviously, the Leafs are the superior team, but great team. I have a lot of fun with the Oilers. They really do got to turn things around, though, let's be honest. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I feel like Avatar was huge for 6 months, and then we all forgot it ever existed. Not optimistic for the sequels. One of the things I've always said about gauging that kind of stuff, about how much has a movie resonated with the pop cultural consciousness. Look no further than Halloween. Seriously, look no further than Halloween. Like every year, it's been 40 years, every year, you still see kids dressed as Jedis and Stormtroopers and Darth Vader and all that kind of stuff. You still, however many years it's been since The Dark Knight, you still see people dressing up as the Joker from Dark Knight and all that kind of stuff, right? I remember the first year that Avatar was out, I think the race of beings in that movie are the Na'vi. I saw a lot of Na'vi costumes that first year. The second year, I saw one Avatar costume, and that was when I was in Las Vegas at Halloween, and I just saw one. I haven't seen one since. Haven't seen one since. And I think that is a movie that exploded onto the pop cultural scene, but then very quickly disappeared. And that's why, look, Avatar 2 is going to be a big hit. I have no doubt about it. It's going to be a big hit, but is it going to get anywhere close to what the first Avatar does? I mean, who knows? I'll have to wait to get closer, but right now I'm pretty pessimistic. I think we're all pretty pessimistic about that. So, and for what you're saying, Ryan, and for what I just talked about, we'll have to wait and see, though. Either Audrey writes, can't wait for Sunday. I have much more to say. Of course, this one came out on Friday. You're talking about Sunday's Avengers spoilers that we did. Can't wait for Sunday. I have much more to say than I expected, and in a way that I wasn't expecting. Pre-formatting my super chat so it'll be easier on you. Well, thank you for that, Either Audrey. And we did a 5-hour Avengers Endgame spoiler chat, and we only got about 1/4 of the way through all the questions that came in. You guys obviously want to talk a lot about it. We have a lot of Avengers Endgame spoiler discussion companion videos that me and Rob are already starting to work on. So we're going to get all those out. They're all going to get addressed. So thanks for that, Either. Let's see here. Stubble McShave writes, Sauron is the Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of Sauron in the Second Age, and there's a lot of stories with him in it. They may do quite a number of seasons. Well, listen, they may just do one season. Doesn't matter how many you want to do. If they do the first one and it sucks and nobody likes it and nobody watches it, they're not going to do another one. It's just that simple. Every series starts wanting to go 5, 6, 7 years. Every movie comes out hoping that it's a big hit and that they can make sequels. But Like Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Remember Aragon, the movie about the dragon? Yeah, that was supposed to be a full trilogy. That was the plan. And then they got punched in the mouth because the first movie sucked. Nobody wanted to see it. And there you go. Now we just got to wait and see. We'll wait and see how this Lord of the Rings thing turns out. Fingers crossed, because I'm hoping for something really good. Dill Pickle writes, saw Endgame last night and loved it. I never cried watching a movie before, but I cried for this one. Got the opening weekend booked for IMAX and Dolby, and obviously, Dill Pickle, a hell of a lot of people had their tickets booked too. It has broken the opening weekend box office record by $100 million. We're never going to see that happen again. We'll see this record broken, but you're never going to ever see the opening weekend box office record beaten by $100 million. That's never going to happen. Will never happen. Some movie will come along in 4 years or 5 years that will beat, 357 million that Endgame has just done, but it won't beat it by $100 million. It's absolute history that we've seen here, Dylan. I hope you had a good time watching the movie. Darth Suthius writes, hey, Mr. C, I was watching an old commentary, and with all sincerity, if possible, I really do hope that you, Mr. Burnett, get another chance of working with the likes of Christian, Mark, Dennis again. I honestly don't think that's ever going to happen. Don't get me wrong. You've seen, if you follow me on social media, you see me with pictures with Dennis. We still go out watch AMC. Me and Christian stay in touch, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But, I've kind of made a promise to myself that I will never again work for somebody else. I'm just never going to do it. I'm never going to work for somebody else. Now, you got to be careful when you say never, never. If Bob Iger calls me tomorrow and says, John, I want you to come in and be my vice emperor at Disney. Well, I'm probably taking him up on that offer. Let's be honest. But for the most part, I'm probably never going to work for somebody else again. And, those dudes are doing their thing and they work for somebody else, but I'm never going to work for somebody else again. Not that there's anything better. It's not that it's better to work for yourself or better to work. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for me personally, I've had it with working for other people. I've had it creating things and building things and having it belong to somebody else. I did that for many years and I ain't going to do that again. So that unfortunately kind of creates a circumstances and a context that I don't think that we're going to get to work again professionally in that level, but it doesn't matter. Me and Dennis are still going to go watch UFC stuff. I'll still stay in touch with Christian and Mark and all them. So, yeah, they're adults doing the things. I just don't think the context is ever going to kind of allow us to do that sort of thing again. But those were good days, man. Those were good days. Brian Clark writes, wow, that Cinemia's statement was really respectful and shows them to be a real class act. Vaya con Dios, brothers. Yeah, so for those of you who don't remember, last week we talked about how Cinemia had officially announced they were ceasing operations in America, and they put out a very candid, very honest letter just basically saying, hey, we weren't able to make it work. With the stuff coming out with AMC, we tried to do this, we tried to do that, and, we started falling behind. Customer service started becoming a nightmare, all this kind of stuff. And the letter, you should go find it for yourself and read it. It was a very, very respectful, very, very well thought out letter that just basically says, hey guys, we tried and we can't make it work. And we tried, but we failed. So instead of continuing on failing and frustrating people, we're just going to close our doors. Now they're able to make it work in other markets, so they're going to still do stuff in other markets. But I'm with you, Brian. I thought that was a very respectful letter, and I thought, hats off to them for trying what they tried. And I hope they're able to make whatever was left of their business work. Let's see. Run Amok Design writes, Endgame got me like, hey, Mr. Feige, what you going to do? What you going to do to make her... Oh, that's from Scott's Tots from The Office. Hey, Mrs. Scott, what you going to do to make our dreams come true? That's one of the most awesome episodes ever. And yep, Feige's kind of been the dream maker for everybody. Run Amok. He absolutely has. All right, Darth Suthius writes, another trope that annoys me is when a couple is running from antagonists, they quickly slip off to the side and hide, but then start to have a moment because they accidentally touch each other. Lame. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now, Darth, that's never bothered me. But until you just mentioned it, I hadn't realized how prominent that one is. They do that a lot. That happens in a lot of movies and TV shows, like a hell of a lot of them. I didn't even really think about it till you mentioned it like that. It's never bothered me before, but now that you've mentioned it, the next time I see it, it's probably going to bother me a little bit. I'll have to keep my eye open for that. All right, Dacky Woods writes, Took my little brother last night, loved it. Theater was not sold out, was surprised. Then I figured it was because it was a school night. Do you think it would be bigger if it was a summer film? No, I think Marvel has found that this March-April window is really good for them. They've just found this window that works really, really good for them. Putting something in summer does not automatically mean it'll be better. Putting something at Christmas does not automatically mean it's going to be bigger and better. It's just finding a good window for you and your movie. And, you know, relative to the competition that you're facing and all that kind of stuff. But this has been a really good window for them. So, no, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that it would have done any better in the summer. It's possible. I'm just saying I don't know. I just don't know if it would have. Maybe it would have. Maybe it wouldn't have. What do you guys think about that? Rufino Salazar Jr. Oh, my God. I loved Endgame. A lot of people did, Rufino. It's a hell of a movie, man. I realize I still wish the first 2 acts were better. To me, there's a lot of really great moments, but also problematic moments in the first 2 acts that left me kind of feeling a little bit middle of the road on, a little mediocre when it's all balanced out. But that final hour, God, greatest hour in the history of the comic book movie genre, in my personal opinion at any rate. All right, So Random writes, Amazon Lord of the Rings series, $750 million for 5 seasons, I think. That's right. You know, I was talking about this last week, and I was talking about it in terms of 1 season, and in reality, the facts were that was for what they're budgeting for 5 seasons, I believe, and it's $1 billion for 5 seasons. $250 million of that was just for all the rights. $750 million for 5 scenes or 5 seasons. They're putting a lot of money into this project, and I hope it turns out the way they're hoping it will. Darth Suthius writes, my allergies are kicking into overdrive. If need be, I'll cut off my own nose before Saturday's viewing. No way I'm ruining others' experiences. You know what I do? You know, every once in a while, a couple times a year, I'll get a cold that hangs in there for like 2 or 3 months. Those of you who've been watching me for a long time know that happens. Like once or twice a year, I'll get a cold, and then everything will go away except for my cough. Right now, I'm just dealing with a kind of a wrecked throat. It's not a cold cough per se. It's kind of a wrecked throat cough right now that I've got. So it's a little different. But you guys who've watched me for years know that when I get that, the cough hangs in there for like a couple of months. And I get the same way you get, Darth. I don't want to disturb other people around me. So when I go to the movies, I bring like a fistful of Halls. Because my cough is great when I'm taking Halls. Halls works like magic with me. When I have Halls, I do not cough. It's great. So I salute you, sir, for being respectful of your fellow film fans and their experiences, and I hope you had a good time watching Endgame, my friend. All right, Dirk Walker writes, does ticket sales stop counting towards Thursday night previews and start counting towards Fridays at 12 a.m.? Did Endgame make $60 million in 6 hours? You know what? Some people have been asked. Here's always been my assumption, and I could be wrong. All right? It has always been my understanding Thursday's numbers count for Thursday, Fridays count for Friday. But I believe Thursday numbers count towards the opening weekend. I believe Friday's numbers count towards opening weekend. But I could be wrong. I'm not stating that as fact. That's just off the top of my head. I don't know. You guys might know better than I do. Jump down in the comment section and let me know. Not only if you know whether it counts towards the weekend, but include a link in the description below or in the comments below if you got a link to an article that definitively says that, because I think it does, but I don't take that as a fact. I could be totally off on that. Hector Ruiz writes, if from now on Endgame matches the pure day grosses of Infinity War, 67, 82, 69, then it reaches 270 million. If it makes more, then it's 300 is probable. Well, guess what, Hector? It was more than probable. It turned out to be 357, blowing away every expectations, blowing away my expectations. I was guessing 280. Disney was guessing 275. So it blew all expectations away. So we know how that all turned out, Hector. Miguel Myers writes, hey, John, I'm a longtime viewer since AMC Movie Talk. I love your work and your podcast. I listen daily. Thank you so much, Miguel. Stay great. Keep up the good work. Much love. Oh, man, that's always nice when somebody just wants to write in just to say something nice. Thank you so much, Miguel, and thank you for being along and being a part of this little film fan community for all that time. I really appreciate it, man. It humbles me a lot. Thank you so much, Miguel. All right. Dirk Walker writes, Endgame was my favorite MCU movie, loved all the nods and callbacks to previous movies, and the emotional punch made having an 11-year, 21-film universe worth it. Well, now, of course, it's a 22-film universe with this film being a 21. I'm of the mindset that I try not to come out of a movie and say whether something is the best or the worst or whatever after just coming out. It's for stuff like that, if you're going to rank them, you got to give it time to marinate. Today marks the 1 week mark since I've seen Endgame. Of course, I was at the Endgame premiere last week. Then I saw it again the next day. So I saw it twice before opening day. Then I saw it twice since. So I've seen it 4 times now. And it is more and more settling into that number 5 spot for me. Out of all 22 MCU films, probably a good 16 or 17 of them are great. But out of the 22 MCU films, I feel more and more that Endgame is settling in really nicely into that really big number 5 spot for me. Behind the original Avengers, Infinity War, in no particular order, Avengers number 1, but then maybe my number 2 is probably Civil War. Then my number 3 is probably Winter Soldier. Then my number 4 is probably Infinity War, and then number 5 is Endgame. So that's really good company. That's really big company. It may move up or down 1 spot or 2 either way, but I'll have a little more time to think about it. But it was certainly a tremendous in-theater experience. And that's what we want out of our movies, right? Tremendous in-theater experiences. All right. Steve Blaine writes, watching Endgame tomorrow at 3 p.m. with my girlfriend, so hype. I hope you had a good time, man, and it's great that you get to go with your girlfriend. That's awesome. Brian Rogers writes, is there anywhere you can point me to suggest / if even prove Marvel used cultural provocation, leading female roles diversity to promote Captain Marvel? I don't think it did. The only thing that I can point to, and there may be others that you guys can point out, but the only thing I can think of that came anywhere near that was that one trailer where it needs, and the word hero was going to come up, but the letters H-E-R came out first, then the other letter, then O came out, hero. It needs her, and then the other letters come out to make hero. That was the only thing I can think of off the top of my head in the marketing that did that. If there's more, you guys help us out. Jump down in the comments section and let us know if there were more. Point to some things. But that's the only thing off the top of my head, Brian, that I can think of. Hope Janet writes, everyone in my theater was audibly crying. I got teary-eyed once, but never cried. However, once the movie actually set in for me, I started crying at home. Yeah, I didn't cry in Endgame at all. But then again, I've only cried in 4 or 5 movies in my life. But I did have strained neck. You know what I mean? When you're like you feel the weepy coming on, the neck strain. Like I did feel that a couple of times. Not in sad parts, but rather these big epic parts that were just so emotionally overwhelming. That's the stuff that got me, Hope. But I've had a few people, Hope, actually tell me that they started crying at home after the movie, which is, man, it's awesome when a movie can have that kind of impact on you. Darth Suthius writes, well into season 5, and Barry's speed is still inconsistent. He can grab carryout in the next city over and be back within a couple of seconds, but not be fast enough to outrun a freeze blast. Jeez. Oh, I'm with you. Here's the funniest thing. Look, I love the Flash show. I do. But they have been completely inconsistent about what his speed can and cannot do. But here's the worst thing to me. Flash is fighting a bad guy. And then all of a sudden, something happens that takes Flash's attention away for a second, and the bad guy got away. Flash turns around. Oh, he got away, and I'm like, time out. You're the Flash. That person couldn't be any more than 200 or 300 feet away from wherever you are right now. You can easily scan every square inch of 200 feet in any direction within a couple of seconds. And they've pulled that numerous times in the Flash show. And it's always made me go, oh, come on. The criminal was on foot. He can't be any more than 50 yards away at most right now. You're the Flash. You can cover that in a second. But just another way they've been inconsistent. I still love the show. But that is something they've been pretty inconsistent with. Let's see here. Amlan Pridarshi writes, went for an early morning show for Endgame at 8 in 3D, but the theater played 2D until people realized it 40 minutes in. they played 3D after the complaint. Man, I would have thought that was awesome because I hate 3D. If I had to buy a 3D ticket just to see the movie, and then I got in there and they started playing it in 2D instead, I would have been overjoyed. But hey, look, there are some people that prefer 3D, and if you paid for 3D and that's what you wanted, that's what you should get. So I'm glad that they put it back over there. Although you should still probably ask for a refund. Or you got to watch the whole movie, maybe not a refund, but maybe, you know, give us a coupon for a free soft drink or something next time we're here, because we paid for 3D. We got almost an hour into it without what we paid for. I hope they did something nice for you. But hey, at least they corrected the problem. Okay, Pizza69 writes, "Hey John, last year on this day I had a stroke. Oh my God. I also had to have heart surgery and had to catch Infinity War 2 months later. Just wanted to say thank you to you and the crew for all that you do." Well, damn, Pizza. And you're still on your feet. You're a tough son of a bitch. First of all, I'm glad that you're back on your feet. I'm glad you were able to go in and still catch Infinity War. And I'm glad that you're here to join in the film fan community. You know, a lot of you guys know, maybe some of you don't. I was in a Muay Thai class with the UFC fighter James Sandman Irvin. I was in a Muay Thai class with him and was actually in a jiu-jitsu class. I was doing my stuff with James. And I suffered, I didn't know it at the time. I had 2 heart attacks. I had a heart attack and I didn't know it was a heart attack. But I had a heart attack, and it was funny because it was right after. I was actually done the class. I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting on a bench waiting for Ann to get out of her jiu-jitsu class. And I was just sitting on a bench in the gym. And all of a sudden I got this sharp pain in my shoulder. And I thought I pulled a muscle or something, right? And you ever get such extreme pain, like stubbing your toe really bad, where you feel like you might get sick and vomit? It was starting to hurt so bad, I thought I was going to puke. So I got up and kind of dragged myself into the bathroom, into the change room. And what happened was one of the managers saw me, and it just so happened that there was a paramedic team there together working out. And so the manager went to that paramedic team and said, "Hey, I just saw this guy. He was looking like he was turning green. Can you go check on him?" And certainly enough, they came into the change room, checked on me, and I'm like, and at that point, the pain started going away. And they just checked me over, and they said, "Do you want us to take you to the hospital?" I said, "No, I think I'm okay now, but I'll give my doctor a call and get whatever this was checked out." So Ann finishes her jiu-jitsu class. She comes out, and as we start to walk to the car, it starts to hit again. I didn't know it, but I was having my second heart attack. And I started to feel horrible again. And Ann and I got back to our house, and I've never felt like anything like this before. I said, "Baby, I think we better call an ambulance." And Ann thought maybe I was just being a baby because I hurt my shoulder. But I'm like, "Honey, I really think we should call an ambulance." So anyway, ambulance comes and gets me. We go to the hospital. Doctor comes in. "Oh, do you smoke?" "No, I don't smoke." "Do you drink?" "No, I don't drink." History of heart attacks in your family? "No." Blah, blah. All this kind of stuff. And the doctor's like, "Okay, well, I don't think you had a heart attack or anything, but we're going to run some tests just to make sure." I'm like, "Cool." At this point, I was feeling okay. And sure enough, the doctor comes in an hour or two later. It's like, "Yeah, you had 2 heart attacks." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And what had happened, it was basically, it was a fluke. But anyway, they had to do a procedure. They fixed it up. It was all good to go. And, but yeah, I mean, it was a scary, scary time. And I can only imagine, and I just share that to let you know you're not alone. That must have been an incredibly scary time for you, Pizza. And I'm glad you're on your feet, and I'm glad you're doing well. And for those of you who never heard me tell the story before, I'm perfectly healthy. I'm perfectly good. My cardiologist has given me a full, clean bill of health. I'm totally good. But thank you for sharing that, Pizza. And I'm glad you were able to go and check out Endgame, man. Good on you. And you are you had a heart procedure and had a stroke, and you are still walking around, dude. In the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, you are one tough son of a bitch. Anyway, Eric Wells writes, today's the day. 6 hours till I see Endgame and clear. This was probably on Friday. I'm glad you had a chance to go see it, Eric. I hope you had a good time. Mustacho writes, I felt like the third act of Endgame held a lot of parallels to Lord of the Rings. I agree, in a good way, especially the epicness. Yeah, like to me, I had somebody get mad at me because we were in a conversation and Lord of the Rings came up and I said, well, look, Lord of the Rings Return of the King is still the better movie. And they looked at me like I just said their mama was a donkey or something. How dare you? I'm sorry, Lord of the Rings is a better film. But it's all subjective. It's all subjective. But to me, yeah, there's no question. Lord of the Rings Return of the King is the better film out of the two. That doesn't take away how fun Endgame is, not at all. But I agree, there are some parallels. I'll still take the last hour of Lord of the Rings, even though I think the last hour of Endgame is the best single hour in the history of the comic book genre. The last final hour in Lord of the Rings Return of the King is not in the comic book genre, and I actually still think it's a little bit better. But you're talking about a movie that won 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, so it's not really a fair comparison, I guess. But anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it like I did. Okay, Mr. Asylum Project writes, big thanks to you. I saw Endgame in full with no break. I once heard you say don't drink anything 2 hours before the show. I also didn't drink during. Got by on mints. Well, there you go. Junior mints save the day. And yeah, I was very strategic about my first viewing of Endgame. I drank earlier, made sure I stopped drinking any liquids 2 hours before the movie. Just before the movie started, I went to the bathroom. Boom, I was fine. Got through the whole movie, didn't even blink. Got through the whole movie. Actually, I think I even went to the after party and went all the way home and didn't use the bathroom again until I got home. Now, while my third and fourth screenings, I didn't care. I was drinking big sodas and all that kind of stuff because I've seen the movie twice. I know when I can take a bathroom break, it's no big deal. But I'm glad my little tip was able to be helpful for you, Mr. Asylum Project, and I hope you had a good time. All right. Frab Nab writes, saw Endgame with my father yesterday. Great time. That's awesome. I go to see Star Wars when it does come out in December. I go home to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I get my mom, and me and my mom will go see a Star Wars movie. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm glad you're able to see that with your dad. That's awesome. Doshi writes, I am Groot. Sorry, don't ban me, John. Don't give away spoilers, Doshi. Don't give away spoilers. King Latom writes, hey, John, I love the show. Thank you so much. With the prophecy of Azor Ahai stating that the weapon to end the long night must be forged into their love's heart, how likely do you think John will kill Dany? Well, you know what? For all of you who have seen Game of Thrones, The Battle of Winterfell, obviously this question came in before the episode aired. You know what happened, but just in case there are a few people that haven't seen it, I don't want to give it away. All I know is that there are a lot of people who are hardcore into that prophecy are upset. And to me, it's who cares, but some people are upset by it. But anyway, I can't go into details because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, just in case there's some people who haven't had a chance to get caught up on it yet. So I'm going to pump the brakes on that, King. But you know what the answer to the question is now, don't you? Because I'm going to assume you watched the episode just like the rest of us did, King Latom. All right, Jeffrey Niffin writes, you stay, I go, no follow, Iron Giant. Yeah, I had a few people, somebody sent in that quote and I couldn't remember where it was from. And then I had a bunch of people send me messages saying, John, it's from the Iron Giant. But thank you for adding yourself to that number, Jeffrey. Robert Perez writes, can't wait to see Ghost Grab My Balls. Oh, that's right. That was the made-up name of a movie. I said, imagine I make a movie called Ghost Grab My Balls or something like that. I should really make a t-shirt. I should do a fake poster of Ghost Grab My Balls. There we go. Dimsum05 writes, more jaw-dropping, Red Skull in Infinity War or Last Hour in Endgame? Whew. I don't know. You see, we knew a big finale was coming in Endgame. You got to understand, I love the Red Skull character. I love that character from Captain America, the First Avenger. I love that character. And he popped up in Infinity War. I had no bloody clue that he was popping up in that movie. And so, literally, my jaw literally dropped. I went, and I turned to my wife with my big gape and, so there was huge epicness in the last hour of Endgame, but I don't know that anything happened in it that I wasn't at least a little bit probably prepared for, Whereas the Red Skull appearance completely caught me off guard, completely hit me on my 6. And I'm going to say that for me personally, that was the bigger jaw drop. Because with everything else that happened, I knew there was at least possibilities of everything that happened happening. So it was awesome. But that Red Skull thing caught me so by surprise, it puts it over the edge a little bit for me. All right, Robin Peterson writes, as I listen to the show today, and I can't help but have a big, bold beam on my face, big old beam on my face, because we are in the end game now. And by this time, probably most of you who are watching this show, by this point, probably most of you have already seen Endgame. What a triumph it ended up being, and I hope you had a good time at it, Robin. I really hope you did. All right, Insane Murdog writes, hello, John. Couldn't super chat or live chat for weeks. Made a new account. Endgame was fantastic. Well, I'm glad you're here chatting with us, Insane, and I'm glad you had a good time because, yeah, it was pretty damn good. Again, it's not my #1 all-time MCU film, but it holds a very strong spot for me in that top 5 in great company with movies like Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War. I mean, it's just a really overall, really thrilling experience, especially that last damn hour, man. Darth Suthius writes, if box office is around 280 million, which is where I predicted it would be, but it came in a lot more than that, don't you fret, Mr. C. Mr. B will watch it over 1 million times to make up that $20 million difference. Yeah, he probably would have. He probably would have. But there was no need because this thing blew away everybody's expectations. 357 is the final number. We're never going to see it again. We're never, ever going to see that again. We're never going to see the existing box office weekend record get broken by $100 million. This will never happen again. The record will be beat, but not by that much. It's just absolutely insane. Flute Bait writes, Ant-Man is my favorite hero. I love Ant-Man, dude. I love Ant-Man. That first Ant-Man movie, and I really like the second one, but I still prefer the first one. I love that character. I love Paul Rudd. I love him in this environment. He's such a different type of character juxtaposed against, you know, Iron Man or Captain America or Thor. He just brings a new dimension to it, and I love him. I'm with you on that. Awesome Spuds MC writes, Ghost grab my balls. I think I got to make that poster, dudes. I think I got to make that poster. Dashi writes, seeing Endgame now, by the time you read this, hashtag jizz time. Well, obviously now you've probably seen it a couple of times by now, and I hope you had a thrilling time, Dashi. Thabo Manalula, right? I'm sure I butchered that name. Forgive me, Thabo. Personally not a fan of this type of joke. Example, Michael meets Pam's landlady, The Office. Guy expecting beautiful girl, then meets ugly lady. I wonder how much they even advertise for such a role when casting. Dwight is my favorite. You know what's funny? I often think that when there's a joke in a movie or TV show and it's at somebody's expense, whether it's a really overweight person or a really old person or a really non-attractive person, right? What do you do for your casting call for that? Looking for somebody really ugly. I mean, it's awkward. It's weird. I'm not going to lie and pretend like I don't laugh at those jokes because sometimes they're really funny and they make me laugh. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. I do, but I often wondered that. What I would guess is they probably take somebody and then say, we're going to make you ugly now. And they do things to them. And I don't know. Hopefully they're polite like that. But to me, that's really, really awkward, Thabo. It's an awkward situation. The thing you're bringing up, I have thought about that exact same thing myself. If I had to do it, I would say, look for somebody that we could make up to be really ugly and handle it more gently like that. And say, now we're going to add makeup to you and do things to you to make you really ugly. I don't know. And maybe that's not being on, dude, I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't do that job. Let's just put it that way. I couldn't do that. I could not be the one to do that casting. I just wouldn't have the heart to do it. So I don't know what I would do about it, man. Roy L writes, saw Endgame twice, seeing it a third time Saturday with the wife. I loved it. For me, it stuck the landing big time. Well, I mean, yeah, the final hour is incredible. It does stick the landing. It is a really satisfying conclusion. And I think even people, if I press them, I think even if you press people on who didn't overall enjoy the movie, and there are those who didn't enjoy the movie, to say, but do you think it did a good job as a conclusion to what they've done so far? I think even a majority of the people who didn't like the movie would probably say, yeah, they did a good job making a conclusion. And that, I think, is one thing that is a real highlight for this movie. But anyway, Roy, I'm glad you guys saw it. Glad you got to see it with your favorite person in the world. And I hope you get a chance to see it again. All right. Chan Drasakara writes, John Schnepp would have shouted so loud seeing Endgame that a glass of wine would have exploded, like his enthusiasm. And also in prior super chat, I wasn't trying to impose my views on everyone, John, just express my views. I can't exactly remember what the previous comments were, Chan Drasakara, but yeah, I mean, Schnepp would have loved that movie. And it was really neat that on my second viewing, it was a press screening at the Disney lot, and I got to take Robert Meyer Burnett as my +1. And for Avengers Infinity War, Robert Meyer Burnett went to the Disney lot to watch it, but he was John Schnepp's +1. And it was me and Rob had a really good conversation. Me and Rob went to have lunch before going to see the movie, and we talked about that. And it was a bittersweet thing for Rob, like remembering going to that movie with Schnepp, and now here we are 1 year later, Schnepp's no longer with us, and talking about how much he would have loved the film, and he really would have. He absolutely really would have. All right. Jason Espinoza writes, over under 30%, Jorah learns of John's claim and tries to kill him. Well, again, I can't even answer that question because the episode's already aired, so I don't want to give anything away now, just in case somebody else is watching who's seen it. Robert Perez writes, is Ghost Grab My Balls an R-rated R film? Yes, Ghost Grab My Balls will definitely be hard R. Absolutely hard R will be Ghost Grab My Balls. Christian Borges writes, John, I appreciate your not putting up a spoiler talk until Sunday. Great for folks like me who can't see it opening night, but still want to talk about it. Yeah, I just think, look, I am not casting any shade on anybody who does earlier spoiler reviews. My personal opinion is that a lot of people, like, there are people who put up spoiler reviews opening night. And the thing is, a lot of people can't see a movie opening night. And by putting up a spoiler review early, you're giving everybody all the spoilers to take and troll other people and spoil the movie for people. And not everybody sees it that way, and I appreciate that. And that's why I'm not casting shade on anybody who does that. That's a choice that they make and all that kind of stuff. But because I feel that way, I just don't like doing it. Certainly, I try to do my spoiler reviews on Sundays. So that gives everybody Thursday to see it, Friday to see it, Saturday to see it. If you're really into seeing that movie, that gave you a lot of opportunity to see it. And by that point, the majority of people have seen the movie. So that's why I feel comfortable on Sundays. Maybe I'll do a Saturday sometime if the schedules are tight, but I just feel personally more tighter for Sunday. But again, not casting any shade on anybody who does it earlier than that. That's a choice, but I feel a certain way about it, so I got to do mine on Sundays. That's just me, though. But thanks for the thoughts, Christian. Neil before Zimmer writes, spoiler, just kidding. Thanos says, I've got comic book movie fatigue, snaps the gauntlet, and wipes out the entire MCU. The end. Yeah, so movie opens at $357 million. Beats the previous record by over $100 million. How's that comic book movie fatigue doing that everybody keeps saying has been setting in for the last 10 years? Good? Good. Good point, Neil before Zod. Okay, Christian Borges writes, also, I'm really enjoying talking with you via Super Chat. You make the film nerd community a very welcoming place. Thanks, Sean. Oh my gosh, Christian, thank you so much. And I appreciate it. And, you know, you guys who send in the Super Chat questions, you're not only giving us great topics to talk about, you're supporting the channel, you know, for guys like me, Ray, Fact Checker Jonathan, Ashley, Rob. Thank you so much for, guys, for all of you who actually decide to step up and actually support the content you enjoy watching. I thank you so much for that. You guys make this channel possible. Victor Rojas writes, you won't believe what happened to me. I went to watch Avengers last night and a storm hit the city, and in the middle of the movie, the power went out. Oh my God. Oh man, that's gotta happen. I'm sure it happens more times than we think, but that really sucks, especially if you're watching Endgame. Now you just got to go back and watch it again. That obviously nobody's fault, but oh, dude, that's rough. First world problems, but that's rough, man. I hope you're able to see it again over the weekend and get caught up now. But man, at least you got a good story out of it, Victor. At least you got a good story out of it. Sir Ivan Bennett writes, watched Game of Thrones last night. It was dark, but then I turned off my lights and it was totally better. So clearly now we're on to today's Super Chat questions from Monday's Super Chat questions. Yeah, we tried some things on the TV. Here's the thing. When you're a professional color grader and you're doing your post-production, you should make your thing in such a way that people don't have to do strange things to be able to see what's going on. And that's a problem I had with it. Now, I loved the episode, I did, but it sucks that my enjoyment of it was hampered a little bit by the fact that there was a chunk of the episode that I just couldn't tell what was happening on screen because it was so bloody dark. And then you mix in really, really dark with super tight shots with really quick, rapid editing, and it was just we have a viewing party here every Sunday, and we're all just sitting around. What's going on? It sounds exciting, but I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's just, and if you have to go around, turn out lights, turn up brightness to full, if you have to do all that kind of stuff, then that means the post-production didn't do its job right. And the post-production didn't do its job right. Still a great, thrilling episode, but I just wish I could have enjoyed it more. Anyway, Jake writes, no worries, John. Don't feel bad for letting the Endgame spoiler slip yesterday. I know you, of all people, wouldn't do it on purpose. Can't break faith with you. Seeing the movie in an hour, so excited. Dudes, this is so bad. So, yesterday, Rob and I did a 5-hour Avengers Endgame spoiler discussion. Then I stopped just in time to watch Game of Thrones, and then me, Ann, and Corey did our Game of Thrones post-show. And somebody brought up a question comparing Avengers Endgame and this episode of Game of Thrones, and I had just been doing open spoiler discussion for 5 hours, and I let a significant spoiler drop from Endgame. I let a significant Endgame spoiler drop, and I heard about it, rightfully so, from some angry people who were watching, going, John, I haven't seen Endgame yet. I figured I could watch a Game of Thrones show and not get spoiled for Endgame. Thanks a lot. And they were totally right to do it. They were totally right to say it. And I didn't even realize I had done it until they were writing and saying that. It was just such a massive brain freeze on my part. Anyway, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to pull the episode down, and because I didn't want to risk other people seeing it. Now, some people then said, well, John, why don't you just edit that part out? I don't have the time. Like, a lot of people don't understand how packed my day is. And I just didn't have time. And it was literally going to take me over an hour to download the video, edit it, re-render it, re-upload it. And I thought, you know, I just don't have time to do it. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to pull the episode. Now, I make money off videos being up and getting views. That's how I make money. But I let a significant spoiler drop. And if it costs me a couple of bucks to pull the video down, then that's what I need to do. I have a job to protect the people who watch my videos, who trust me not to drop spoilers. And I dropped a spoiler. And that's on me. And if that means I had to pull my video down, then I pull my video down. And I did. I pulled my video down, and I just feel terrible about it. It was such a brain fart on my case. And there's no excuse. I offered the explanation that I had just done 5 hours of spoiler chat, but I should have been more careful, and that is on me, and that is my responsibility. And all I can say is I'm going to try to learn from that mistake and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I'm really grateful, Jake, that you know it certainly wasn't on purpose, and it wasn't intentional. And I'm glad that you see it that way. So thank you for the kind words, Jake. I appreciate it. All right, Timothy Plott writes, I turned my brightness on my phone all the way up and had no issue seeing Game of Thrones. Thanks for warning, though. Yeah, I mean, it's some people saying they had to turn the brightness all the way up, turn off the lights, do all this kind of stuff, and they were able to make it through. But again, it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to go to extreme measures just to see what's going on screen. But I'm glad you were able to watch it, Timothy. Tim Wood writes, because it is a great episode. Tim Wood writes, Thanos, Infinity War, Curse with Knowledge, Endgame tie-in? Well, Tim, I can't really go into that because I don't want to give anything. But what I will say to that is this. Thanos, knowing who Tony was, had no other meaning other than the fact that he was aware of who the Avengers were because of the events of the first Avengers movie. That's all it meant. I've always said that. I still believe that even after Endgame. But I can't go into the Endgame details because that would be giving away spoilers. And I've already done enough of that, apparently. Either Audrey writes, saw Endgame a second time yesterday. Now that I knew all, I could relax and enjoy. It was a good deal better. Actually had a couple of feels this time. I don't think I've enjoyed the movie more. I certainly don't enjoy it any less, but I really enjoyed it the first time. But I will say, I see where I can relate where you're coming from, either because I also had a few more feels than I did the first time around. That my second, third, and even my fourth viewing, the emotional responses out of me got a little bit stronger, which is really weird because I've already seen the movie, but I had that exact same experience as you did. Kirby Longhong writes, or Kelby, I should say, writes, didn't like Endgame. Sure, the battle was great, but everything before was meh. I'm sorry I feel this way. It's more fun to like a movie than not to. Kelby, you do not apologize at all. Movies are subjective. All movies hit us all as individuals in different ways. And all you can do, it's not your job to like a movie. You go in to watch a movie, and it's the movie's job to give you that experience. And no movie can give that experience to everybody. We're all different people with different dispositions, with different tastes, with different flavors, right? And a movie's going to hit you in a certain way, and it's either going to be in a positive way or one that doesn't work for you. It didn't work for you. You have nothing to apologize for, brother. There are people who don't like, I've been saying this for a couple of days now. There are people who don't like Godfather. There are people who don't like Bridge on the River Kwai. There are people who don't like Shawshank Redemption. What the hell? But that's true. That's the nature of it. I don't like the original Blade Runner. And a lot of you are gasping now. But it's true. I'm not going to lie. I didn't. I just watched it and it hit me in a certain way. So you are a film fan, man. You have nothing to apologize for. Don't say you're sorry. You went in hoping to like it. It didn't work for you. No big deal. Maybe the next one will. And that's the beautiful thing about being a film fan, sir. All right. It's Bernizi writes, what's your opinion on Spider-Man 3? It's my favorite. I'll be honest with you, talking about the subjectivity of film, it is absolutely my least favorite of all the Spider-Man movies. I even like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 more than I like Spider-Man 3. I honestly thought Spider-Man 3 was a mess. But that's how it hit me. You watched it and it worked for you, and that's awesome. And that's all that matters, man. Brandon Blake writes, hey guys, love the show. Thank you so much, Brandon. I wish you had put an Endgame spoiler warning on the Game of Thrones discussion last night. Seeing it today, but now I know things. I just went into that, dude. I know I dropped the ball on it. I totally know that I did, and I apologize deeply for it. And the only thing I could do was to pull the video down. And again, my apologies. I hope I learned my lesson, and I'll try to make extra sure that I don't do it again next time. SH1F722 writes, from Deadline, according to a survey of Fandango, Endgame moviegoers, or 81%, said they would consider seeing the movie again in theaters. No guarantee, but this seems to bode well for Endgame's legs. I really don't put much stock in that. Any movie that people like, they'll say they're likely to go back and see it again. They would at least consider going to see again. So I don't put much stock in that. We'll see. The big test is going to be when a significant film opens up next, and that one is going to be Detective Pikachu in 2 weeks. So it's got a lot of time all to itself. Endgame has a lot of time with the movie theaters all to itself for a couple of weeks. We'll see how it does against Pikachu. I think by the end of its second weekend, by the end of its third weekend when it's against Pikachu, or Detective Pikachu, I should say, I think we are going to know definitively if it's going to catch Avatar. It's going to catch Infinity War. It's going to catch The Force Awakens. It's going to catch Titanic. The only question is it going to catch Avatar? And we'll know for sure by that weekend. That's when we'll know for sure. Darth Sidious writes, hey, John, can we please avoid Endgame spoilers? Because I'm not watching it until Wednesday. Doing my best, man. All I can say is absolutely doing our best. I won't openly talk about them, but, you know, if people slip them into the chat, I don't know. But we're going to try our best. Leander writes, if Endgame grosses $2 billion by the end of the upcoming weekend, which it seems more than likely will do you think that it will eventually dethrone Avatar? I think it's got a shot at dethroning Avatar, but honestly, I don't think catching $2 billion by the end of the second weekend or not catching $2 billion by the end of the second weekend influenced that whatsoever. Like, for instance, just because it doesn't get to $2 billion by the end of the next weekend, do you know how long it took Avatar to get to $2 billion? A long time. But then it just kept going and going and going and going. So even if Endgame doesn't get to $2 billion by the end of next weekend, that doesn't mean it's not going to reach Avatar. But even if it does get to $2 billion by the end of that weekend, it still has $1.7 billion to go. Or sorry, it still has over $700 million to go. $700 million, which most movies would consider being a hit all by itself. So even if it doesn't get to $2 billion, it still could. Even if it does get to 2 billion, it doesn't automatically mean it will. So I don't know that that really will tell us one way or the other. Again, I think we'll know for sure once Detective Pikachu comes out. That will give us a clearer picture. So it's certainly well on its way, though, man. It is well on its way. Rainman writes, I loved Endgame. I can't wait to tell my kids. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I'm glad you had such a good time, and I'm glad you have some kids to share it with. James Hoffman writes, the only movie that can match Endgame at the box office is Star Wars Episode 9. I don't think Star Wars, I'll be honest, I'm a Star Wars guy. You all know this. I don't think Star Wars Episode 9 has a prayer of catching that. Star Wars Episode 9 going to be a big hit. Make no mistake about it. It's going to be a massive blockbuster. No question. But it ain't getting close. It ain't getting close to Avengers Endgame record. No way. I suppose anything is possible. I'll keep that in mind. Anything is possible. But let's just say I'll be very, very surprised. I honestly don't think it has much of a chance. And I'm a major Star Wars guy. But hey, wouldn't it be great if it did? I just don't see it happening. Let's see. Nick writes, do you think Endgame will be in theaters anywhere near as long as Avatar? No. Keep in mind, in Avatar's last couple of months of screenings, it only grossed a few thousand per day. At the domestic box office, nope. It's just the trend today. It's just what the reality of the movie theaters today. Movies do not stay in theaters nearly as long as they used to. The emphasis on movies now is opening weekend. You know, it's all about opening weekend now. More and more people who are interested in seeing a movie go to see it opening weekend. More and more people today are buying tickets in advance using online services for opening weekends than ever before. Robert read a report saying 62% of people who went to go see Avengers Endgame this weekend bought their tickets online in advance. That there's a much growing heavy emphasis towards almost all movies are now totally front end loaded. Never any more than Avengers Endgame. So Avengers Endgame broke the opening weekend box office record. It could go on to defeat and top Avatar for the #1 box office movie of all time. It will not be in theaters as long as that was, though. It will not be in theaters as long as Avatar was. That's just not the way movie going works today. So anyway, but it could well pass, Avatar long before. But it won't be in theaters as long. It just can't. That's just not the way movie going works anymore. Derek Travis writes, please tell me that Game of Thrones Episode 3 spoiler discussion goes back up with the Endgame spoiler cut out. I only got to see half of it before I went to bed. Your spoiler discussions on my nerd water cooler. I just don't have time to do that, man. So no, it's probably not going to go back up. But we will do one for next week's episode. So make sure you tune back in then, my friend. Haskell420 writes, hey, John, deadline update. Endgame made $356 million for the weekend, beating the studio's Sunday estimate. Fandango sold more than $127 million in tickets from April 2nd to April 28th. I know, I saw those numbers. It's huge. Again, I've been telling you guys for a long time, there's this growing trend of going to see opening weekend. That's heavier and heavier importance. And people more and more adopting online ticket buying in advance. And this is just proof of it again. And surely the biggest ticket sales Fandango's ever done. So people at Fandango, I'm sure, are throwing a little bit of a party right now. Hungry Wallaby writes, my local theater showed Endgame 9 times Sunday, all sold out. So me, no see. Will they keep showing Endgame as often, displacing films already scheduled? There won't be a need to. Because now not only has just about everybody seen it, a lot of people have already seen it multiple times. So this movie is going to continue to make big money, but it won't require that many screenings to do it. So you're going to see it fall back to more of a regular screening on more screens than most other films. But you're going to see it go to more of a regular rotation, I think, and making big money along the way. So I really don't think you're going to see that moving forward. MCV Multi-Comic Verse writes, I have a 2-month-old drive-ins are a lifesaver. We were talking about drive-ins today. I think they're not really relevant anymore, but I love drive-ins. And that is a great point, MCV, that especially if you're a parent and you got a young kid and you're worried about a kid getting fussy or maybe crying in a movie theater, drive-ins, perfect. Oh my God, that's perfect. Because you got your own car, roll your windows up, seal yourself in. You don't have to worry about disturbing other people along the lines. And you can put toys in the back seat for the kid if the kid's getting kind of rambunctious, whatever. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks for that, MCV. All right. Rod V69 writes, Ashley, will you marry me? That's kind of creepy. Making you happy with the rest of your life will make me happier than the third hour of Avengers Endgame. You're the most beautiful woman in the world. Again, a little bit creepy, but I'm sure your heart was in the right place, Rod. Thanks for sharing. Bullet510 writes, my take on Thor being depowered. He gets his power from Asgard, and Asgard is a people, not a place. And as Thor has isolated himself from his people, well, you know what, Bullet, I can't go into that because that involves discussing particulars of the movie, and we can't do that right now. Gas Price writes, hey, John, I think Endgame will hit 2.2 billion. Oh, I do too. I just think it's going to go higher than that as well. It'll hit 2.2, passing Titanic. And then I think it's going to keep going after that. So we'll find out for sure pretty soon here. Imran Shuhail writes, new Endgame trailer from Marvel has spoilers. Bad? If it's in a trailer, it's not a spoiler. Look, a spoiler is anything that alters your fundamental perception of your viewing experience as intended by the filmmakers. By definition, if they put something in a trailer, it's not a spoiler. If you want to say anything from the movie is a spoiler, then anything they put in any trailer is a spoiler. So if they put in a trailer, to me, it's not a spoiler. Rocking Games Kid writes, Endgame was cool, but saw your spoiler chat and nothing was more badass than Rob staring down the barrel of the camera and nodding at an excitable Campea. It's pretty fun when me and Rob get to geek out together. That's often pretty fun. I have a good time with that. And yeah, we had a lot of geeking out when we were talking about Endgame, that's for sure. All right, Dart Suthius writes, thoughts on Doom Patrol Cyborg compared to Justice League's? I enjoy his version a lot more. Granted, we were only introduced to Justice League's for one movie. I agree. Now, the movie version's more badass, but this is obviously the Cyborg character in Doom Patrol. They have a lot more time to build character and give him more dialogue and interaction. And they certainly gave him more of a personality. And I'm telling you what, guys, I am loving this Doom Patrol show. I wasn't going to watch it. You guys talked me into watching it, and I'm so glad that you did because I am loving this show. And I'm really liking the Cyborg character, so I prefer that one, Darth. Blue Rock writes, what's your best movie audience experience? I'm telling you, that first Avengers one, maybe that first Avengers one might have been the best one I've ever. Now, there may be others one, but that first time I saw the Avengers, the audience, which was a bunch of jaded, crotchety film critics all losing their collective bananas going crazy over that movie, might have been my favorite one. That one might be my favorite one as well. I'd have to think about it. Maybe it was something else if I had more time to think about it, but I'm going to lean towards that one right now. Kella EQ2 writes, Captain Marvel is number 2 this weekend, minus 11% from last weekend, plus 5% is that Endgame coattails? I don't know. I mean, it might be. I'm sure there's an influence there. People wanted to see Captain Marvel to get ready for Endgame, maybe, but man, it's just crazy that you've got $2 billion films in the theater at the same time, number 1 and number 2 at the box office. It's absolutely nuts, but I'm sure, I'm not going to say it's the reason, but I'm sure the influence of Endgame has a little bit to do with it. All right, Darth Suthius writes, I don't understand when people get legit upset that a character doesn't stay the way they wanted. Even though fictional, can a character not change or have flaws? We all change throughout our lives. I agree. As long as they do something interesting with the character. And that was a big argument that came up about Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Now, you guys know I've got some issues with The Last Jedi. You all know this. But one of the things that some people have a problem with that I loved, I thought they did Luke great in The Last Jedi. And a completely consistent to the nature of Luke's character from the other movies. Like people say, Luke wouldn't be like that. I instantly want to say, have you never seen Star Wars? Like honestly, because you saying that Luke would never be like that makes me suspect you've never seen Star Wars and never seen Empire Strikes Back and never seen Return of the Jedi. So I just have to ask, have you ever seen those movies? Because if you have, you should know that stuff Luke did in there is completely consistent with the core of who his character is, but also he's evolved over decades. It makes perfect sense. Now, some people agree with me, some people disagree, and that's fine. And there are certain, like I said, there's a number of things in The Last Jedi that I do not like. But how they handle Luke was great, but that's often a point of it. But there's not a lot of examples of characters that we can revisit 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, right? I think great characters are like real people. Real people change, they evolve, they have their core nature, who they are, but then how that expresses itself changes. And I think people need to get back on board with that. More people have to stop going into movies, and I think we're all guilty of this. We need to stop going into movies having already written the script in our heads and going, now you need to do what I think you need to do. We got to stop that. We got to just go in and watch the movie that they made for us and leave our expectations at the door, because I think that's a big kind of ramification of it. Old Flicks Joe writes, Thanos' double sword was probably made from Nidavellir, explaining why Captain America's vibranium... dude, we can't talk about that. Ali Kagri Altali writes, I just checked the Endgame shows for next Friday at the theaters near me. Number of shows went from 20 to 9 shows a day. Second week drop predictions. Well, look, whenever a movie opens as huge as Infinity War or The Force Awakens or now Avengers Endgame, you have to assume there's going to be a good chunk of a drop-off because everybody's seen it now. So I think between 50 and 60% is a good number. I think this movie's going to drop 50 to 60% on second weekend, which means it's still going to have like $175 million second weekend, which will be another record that it breaks. And it's going to be great. But I'm sure there are going to be some brain dead people who see like it takes a 60% drop, go, oh, it takes a 60% drop. That means nobody liked it. No, it means everybody went to go see it already. So we saw that happen with all the big MCU films. We saw that happen with other big monster films. It's going to happen again. So somewhere between 50 and 60, probably closer to 60. And that's still an amazing number. Let's see. Jeremiah writes, can Hulk movie be on Disney Plus? Or is too much money for special effects? They can't do a Hulk movie because if they make a Hulk movie, then Universal has the rights to distribute it. Distribution is not just in movie theaters. Distributors get to decide where a movie goes, both theatrically and what happens to it after theatrically. So Marvel's not going to make a Hulk movie as long as Universal holds the distribution rights to Hulk. So if they did, it would be up to Universal to decide where it would go. I know that seems weird, but if Marvel made a Hulk movie right now, Disney gets to be the distributor in the theaters, and then Disney gets to decide what streaming service the Hulk thing goes to. So that's why they're not going to make a Hulk movie right now. Brian Learns Stuff, 1 of 2 writes, my first AMC Dolby cinema experience was the Blade Runner sequel. Oh God, that must have been beautiful. Since then, Dolby Cinema has utterly spoiled me. Every tentpole film I drive from Panama City to Tallahassee, 2 hours, and Endgame was just insane in Dolby Cinema. I've been telling people for a long time, Brian, I'm so glad you enjoy it. I still remember the first time I sat in a test screening for Dolby Cinema at AMC Prime and how floored I was by the image, the audio, the whole experience. And I remember I started telling people, I'm going to take this over IMAX every day of the week now. And people looked at me like I was crazy, but now more and more people are seeing what I was talking about. Now, don't get me wrong, IMAX is awesome too. And if I get to go see a movie in IMAX, great. But if I have a choice between IMAX or Dolby at AMC Prime, I'm going to go see the Dolby, the dual laser projection system, the audio. And you're right, I had the exact same experience, Brian. It ruined me. Now, when I got to go to like one of the theaters at AMC that's not in the Dolby, I'm like, Like even one of my Endgame screenings, I couldn't do it in the Prime theater. So I didn't have the recliners, I didn't have the dual laser projections. I'm like, all right. Because it ruins you. It's so good it ruins you. I'm glad you enjoy it, man. But man, that's rough that you got to drive 2 hours to get it. I got to appreciate more that I'm a 10-minute walk up the road from one. So I should appreciate that more. All right, John Demoto writes, 350 million opening weekend, 1209 worldwide, or 1,209 million worldwide. I have a couple of words for you, John. Superhero movie fatigue, right? Exactly, John. Tell me how this superhero movie fatigue is going. Tell me more about this superhero movie fatigue. Tell me about how people are getting tired of the comic book movies. Tell me more about that. That's a good point, John. All right. James Colazzo writes, CBR says casting for the new Batman this week. Thoughts? I maybe, but I guarantee you they've already got their Batman. I don't care what they say. I don't care what official press statement they put out. I don't care. They've already cast Batman. I'm telling you, they've already cast him. It's done. Because remember, we found out years later that they cast Ben Affleck as Batman 6 months before the announcement. They made the announcement. 6 months. And I don't think that's unusual. I think that happens all the time. So I'm telling you right now, they've already got their Batman. I don't know who it is, but I'm telling you right now, I 100% believe, I don't care what official press statement they put out, anything like that, they've already got their Batman. So that's my thought on that. Eli writes, after third weekend drop, do you consider Shazam a flop? You can never call a movie a flop that's profitable. If a movie is profitable, you're an insane person if you try to attach the word flop to it. It's made money. It only costs like $98 million for them to make the film. The movie's well over the $300 million mark. That means it is well into profitability. Not a huge profitability, but it's well cleared the break-even point. It's now generated and been a moneymaker for the studio. So no, you're not you, Eli, not you personally. I'm just saying you got to be pretty stupid to call any movie that makes money a flop. If it makes money, then by definition it's not a flop. So no, it is not a flop at all. Gumper Man writes, there are folks that are trying to say that people clapping and cheering during movies is pointless and these people want it to stop. I know, look, everybody has their own preferences when it comes to movie-going experiences. And I don't dump on anybody for what theirs are. All I can say for myself is this. Movies are experiential events. And I get a big kick. I love it. If something that's happening so exciting, I tell you, one of my screenings for Endgame, a couple times, not everybody in the audience, but a few pockets of people when things were going on the last hour, like literally stood to their feet and started clapping their hands. Like, I love that. That people are getting so into the emotion of the movie, it just elicits a response. Whether that response is tears, or the response is laughter, or the response is shock, or the response is just get up to your feet and cheer. I personally love it. But hey, not everybody likes that. Some people like to have a more calmer, movie theater experience. And I don't blame them for that. But what I would say is don't poo-poo on other people who are getting so enraptured in the experience of the movie that it expresses itself. Now, as long as they're not talking and being disruptive to people, that's fine. But if you have an emotional reaction, I think that's great. But that's just me. And again, I'm not dissing on anybody who feels opposite of that. I just tell you how it makes me feel. All right, final question of the day, and then we were all caught up. Comes from King Rem Dog, who writes, do you think a Gilligan's Island movie could work? Well, look, first of all, the answer to do you think a X movie could work? The answer is always yes. It could. Doesn't mean it will, but it could. So yes, a Gilligan's Island movie could work. You couldn't set it in modern times because it's very difficult to be stranded on an island for 7 years and nobody find you in the modern era with all the technology we have. I'll tell you what, though, I'd be down for it, King. I'd go to see a Gilligan's Island movie. Doesn't mean it'll be good, but I'd be down for checking it out. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion video. We're now all caught up on all the questions that we got in on Friday and, of course, today on Monday. Don't forget, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow morning. Me, Ashley, and Robert Meyer Burnett will be in here doing that. I hope you come along and join us as well. Thanks again for sending in all those questions, guys. My name is John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.